I'm Adam from the Watch Crowd. We've recently set up our Facebook group, and I'd like to say thank you to yourself and also to Gray and Elliot for the introduction. And this will be our first Q&A session, so thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Do you want to give us a quick introduction of who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, certainly. So my name's Stephen Mansfield. I'm one of the co-founders of Singularity Watch. It's a watch that a good friend of mine, Daniel Blunchy, and myself developed. It's got a patented time display for a single hand. And we're in the process of taking our new way of seeing time to the world. So it's a great opportunity to talk to you and to introduce our watch to your followers on Facebook.
Thank you very much. So I've got a few questions lined up ready to go for you. Like, how far back does your interest in watches go? Have you always been involved in the watch industry?
No, I'm quite a new convert to the watch industry. I got involved with watches probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I've always had an appreciation for watches. I've always enjoyed owning a watch, but I was very, should we say, predictable in my watch choice. I had a very steady Rolex my wife had given me when we were dating, and I'd had the same watch for probably 20 years. What happened was when I used to live in Japan, and I now I then moved to Hong Kong, and when I moved to Hong Kong, I got involved with a watch brand that had hit financial difficulties during the financial crisis. And for a variety of reasons, this watch brand, we stopped selling the watches, and that's when I met Daniel. Daniel was helping me. He's been in the watch industry, the Swiss watch industry, for 30 odd years now. And so he was helping me to understand a lot about watches, a lot about watch accessories in particular, because we were building this watch brand up around the accessories business. And that's where I guess the catalyst for Singularity was discovered. We got to a point where we had a watch brand, and all we were doing was selling watch accessories, so straps and buckles and watch cases and watch carriers and all sorts of stuff like that. But we didn't have a watch, so we were a watch brand without a watch. And Daniel and I were constantly talking about about the watch and how we could recreate, or how we could create a watch for this watch brand. And the only stipulation that we had was it had to be different. We wanted something that would be very unique in the market, would stand out, and was not something that could be easily we didn't want to have something that was just a different color or just a different shape. It had to really have its own personality that set it aside, set it apart from everything else in the market. So that's and through that process, I started to get very enthusiastic about watches, and I had a little bit of a head start. My background was actually in materials engineering. I studied materials engineering at university. So as soon as you start taking a watch apart and looking at how the variety of materials are applied to creating a very fine piece of mechanical movement, I start to get quite fascinated by that. So that's really how I got involved with watches. It was it started off as a business interest, and now it's becoming quite consuming, should I say? Quite passionate.
Yeah. So how did the whole idea of Singularity come about? How did the creation of the single hand that you use, which is, I've seen it on other watch brands, but yours is although essentially it's just one hand, it's a completely different concept to every other single hand watches I've seen. And so how did the concept of Singularity come about, and the idea of the single hand that you use?
Sure. So the whole idea came about. We were looking for, as I said, we had this watch brand that had no watch, and the conversation, Daniel and I were always having this conversation about what should the watch be like for this brand? How are we going to take it forward? And you know, Daniel's made thousands of watches, so he's very comfortable. Says, okay, what shape do you want it? What color do you want it? Do you want it to be a diver's watch, a sports watch, a classic watch? And I felt sometimes we're just going through the motions and choosing from the menu. And I thought, that's not going to do anything for us. We want something that's going to be different. So the conversation after a couple of iterations was always, well, we need to do something different. And watches have been around for a long time, so it's pretty difficult to find something that is really unique, something that really is new. And we just kept having the conversation. It was over and over again. We'd come up with ideas and then think, oh no, I think that's been done, and then you find someone's done it, and we're just going backwards and forwards. And then it was a very we just met up for a drink, and I think we were 3 bottles of wine into the evening, and we started talking about them. Sorry?
Usually when the best ideas happen.
Yes, well, sometimes. We were just talking about watch movements and really breaking it down into its component parts. And again, I was thinking about it from the way I think about things as an engineer. And I was thinking, well, there's a power store, and then you've got an engine, then you've got a gearbox. That's pretty much how it works. It's just different size, scale, and different ways of storing and releasing energy. But that's what it is. It's a motor car on a very small scale. And I was sitting there just scratching my head, and I went, well, the only difference in that gearbox is there's no, well, not the only difference, but one of the key differences in the gearbox for a watch and a car is there's no reverse gear. And I sort of said, well, what if we put a reverse gear in? What can we send backwards? And then the whole thing just sort of collapsed into, what if we send the minutes back? Okay, well, if we send the minutes back, we can have the minutes converge with the hour at each point. And then it was about how do we display the time if we send the minutes backwards? And that's where the whole thing just came together. And we just scrolled it on the back of a beer mat. We got it on our website, and maybe you can show it here, but we've got the original design drawing on the back of a beer mat. And that's where we started. And from there, we did the same checks the next day. We were going around seeing if it had been done before. We couldn't find any references. So we went and applied for the patent. And about 18 months later, we received the patent for the time display. So that's really where it came from. And as we started to move forward with the watch, we realized that our passions were really for the watch rather than the whole brand and all the accessories that we were doing. So we sidelined all the accessories and really Daniel and I are focused on the watch, because we see that there's we love the concept of the watch. We love the individuality of the watch. We love to take the complexity of the watch as a mechanical item and make that a feature for each individual. So, one of the most or one of the aspects that we find particularly interesting is that we had to completely redesign the way a watch face is attached to the movement. So in any watch, any standard two-handed watch, you generally have a watch face that's made of a single piece, and it's assembled, and the index is put on it, and it's just slid in as one single unit on top of the movement. Well, our watch face is made of 4 different individual components, And each of those components comes in a variety of colors, a variety of finishes. And that ends up, as you multiply that up, it ends up that at the moment, we've got over 10,000 different possible combinations of our watch that can be made. And we decided at an early stage that, instead of us deciding what watches people should have, we would give people the choice to choose the configuration of their watch face so that it was their watch. And that's how we do it. So we talk to our customers, and they come and choose the configuration of their watches. There's lots of, there's 4 components, but there's 8 different selections that people can make, whether it's the index color, the superluminova, the quality of the superluminova, hand colors. There's lots of different changes that each individual can make. And so we want people to have that journey with the watch as well. So they really it's a unique display of time with a unique watch, which each person has been intimately involved in creating themselves.
It's nice. It's nice to be able to, well, like you say, essentially design your own watch from the ground up. It feels like you're taking part in the production of your own product, and like you say, you've got something completely unique to start off with, but then the look of it is also more than likely going to be unique to yourself. So you've got your Singularity movement. It's I don't know of any other watch that has a patent on how you read the time, because obviously every other watch is either a 3-hand chronograph, digital, that everyone's using the same format of reading. So you've got your Singularity movement, which lots of watch brands use, but then the patent, are you the only watch brand I know of that has a patent on how you read the time? Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't like to say the only one, because I haven't actually gone and checked that, but I'm not immediately aware of another one who has the patent on the way we display time. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a little bit of a novel approach, but to try, a lot of the large watch brands are patenting very technical aspects of the way they create their watches these days. But again, that's really what the brand's about. It's, we want to take it forward as how we see time and how we consider we use our time each day, and every time we look at the idea is every time we're looking at our wrist, we think, okay, what am I actually doing with this moment that I have here and now, rather than getting a smartwatch or whatever with 1,000 emails coming in telling me what I should be doing for the next 6 weeks. So that's that again, that's a little bit of the spirit behind what we're trying to do. Now, when we get into the technical details, we do base the watch on a Singularity movement. So we buy standard Singularity movements. We use the SW200 movement, and we also use an SW300 movement, which is fully decorated and adjusted. So that's very high, plus or minus. I think it's 4 seconds a day is the accuracy on the high end movement. And what we had to do, obviously, we've got a new display of time, so no one's actually got a movement that will display time the way we display it. So what we had to do is completely redesign the wheel train from the base plate up. So all the timekeeping movement is the same, but above that we disassemble the movement part way, and then we integrate our module on top of that movement that gives us the unique display of time.
So the module that you guys use, is that made in-house? Is that yours?
It's ours. We've done all the engineering. So that's one of the key development steps we had to overcome, was to to work out, first of all, could it be done? You know, when we sat down with the engineers in Switzerland, we sort of said, well, this is what we want to do. Can we do it? It was evident quite quickly that it was something that was possible. And then we went to get them manufactured. So we don't actually sit in a workshop and make each of the wheels and gears ourselves, but we outsource that to various component manufacturers in Switzerland. And every component within the watch case is made in Switzerland for our watches. So it's a Swiss movement. The module is 100% made in Switzerland. The watch face is 100% made in Switzerland. Obviously, it's assembled and cased up in Switzerland as well.
How important is the materials and the construction of the watch, from, you know, whether it's the leather band, the steel case, the glass hands, you know, what materials do you try and use? We're
very careful about the materials we use. So again, you know, Daniel's been in this business for 30 years. So, you know, there's no way this watch would ever have been created if Daniel did not have the experience he had. You know, we're going and, you know, we've been able to short circuit a lot of the usual troubles that maybe a micro brand may have in trying to create not just a watch, but a complete new movement as well to display time in a new way. If I turned up in the borders of Switzerland trying to do this, I think I'd still be trying right now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we go through, you know, let's take the watch band, for example. We're very careful about the leathers we use. We get the lining leather is tanned and finished for us to our color specifications and our physical specifications. The steel case as well, we specify. We use a 316L stainless steel or a 1.4404, depending on which specification line you want to go down. You know, we've got a high quality sapphire crystal for both the front and the open back. You know, the hands are rhodium. One of the hands we have PVD coated in a dark blue. So we go through in every single aspect of that watch. We've taken apart and we detail so that we understand not only that it is of the right quality, but also that it is as a thoughtful use of our resources as we can possibly make it.
Yeah. So I assume the reason you ask people to come direct to yourself is you're not really going to have a 12 or 24 watch brand collection with the fact that you can just pick anything you want. Is that the reason why it's through yourself?
Well, I think there's the main reason is that we want to ensure that we keep our authenticity. And the whole idea behind Singularity is that it's a unique watch and it's individual to each person. We want to celebrate everybody's individuality with the watch. You know, we can all go out and buy a Rolex, or, you know, you can walk into a room and you see exactly the same watch. And part of our DNA is that it's a very unique and individual watch, but also, you know, that journey of creating the watch, we want people to enjoy that journey and see how the watch is made, understand all the permutations and combinations, and then find one that's good for them. And that needs, you know, that needs understanding of how the watch is put together and what the limitations are. And there's, you know, pretty much Daniel and I are the ones who can do that right now. And to take that process and make sure that people can experience it in a classic retail model, I think is very difficult because, you you want to be able to well, we literally have disassembled watches, and we're showing people how they can, change the color of the superluminova, or we change the color of the hour ring, and we got different finishes for the center disc. Do you want Côte de Genève or Côte de Paris? And these are choices people can make. And then once someone is comfortable with that choice that they've made, we take that and we have that watch assembled specifically for that customer.
Yeah.
And then it's sent to the customer. So it doesn't lend itself to a retail environment where people are generally choosing from the selection that's available and then walk out of the shop with it. That's I don't think that's really what we're about.
I mean, the nice thing about it, because of the iconic single hand, is you made the comment about anyone can have a watch and it's going to look the same as everyone else's. Now, you can have your watch look completely different to anybody else's, but also it can be instantly recognized, which is very nice, because no one's going to have the same watch, or very unlikely to have the same watch as you. So the price range is obviously the fact that you're going to customize it. Every time you pick something different, it's either going to force the price up or bring it down a touch, depending on what, if you go for PVD coated hands or whatever it may be. But what's kind of an average start price? And then if you went for all the bells and whistles, what would the price range be?
You're going to want that. Do you want that in sterling? What's the best price?
Well, let's go for sterling and dollars for some of the Americans.
Okay, so I know the numbers off the top of my head. So it's $1,980 US. Mm-hmm. That would is the starting price. So that gets a starting point. That would be for an OHI2 watch, and then there are additional permutations and combinations on top of that. So, for example, if you wanted to put superluminova on the index, that's an incremental cost. We do single pieces as well, but again, those are priced on a request basis, and then they go up from there. So depending on the movement, the movement has a big impact. So if you go up to OHI4, which is the Sellita SW300 movement, those start at $3,950 and go on up, and that's delivered to your door, taxes paid. Now, in the UK, let me get my calculator out. It's basically just whatever the exchange rate is, times 1.2 for the VAT. So it's about £1,800 and up is the way it goes. Most people, on average, it's about $3,000 to $3,500 is the average.
Yeah. Nice. And do we have any plans on any sort of line extensions, any other new ideas in the pipeline?
What
does the future hold?
There are plenty of ideas. It's quite interesting once you start to sit down and take it apart. We've had a number of requests for a ladies version, and we've got a number of ideas on how to do that, which I think would be quite striking. And then we get a lot of requests to make for a bigger watch case. So at the moment it's a 41 millimeter watch case. It's 47 millimeters lug to lug, if just in case someone's interested. People, especially in the US, like to have bigger watch cases these days. So we've had a few requests for bigger watch cases. But what we're really trying to do is we're going to try and make it so that we keep a lot of flexibility in the choices, so that every time we bring in a new, let's say a larger watch case, we still are keep the number of variations growing at every point as we're moving through the cycle. So you know, we've spoken to people who wanted a black watch case as well, which is reasonably easy to do. So yeah, as we gain more momentum, we get a better understanding of what people are looking for, then definitely. And my personal desire is to be able to do a skeleton version of it as well. So let's see.
Yeah. Looking at the picture in the background behind you, and imagine how you try and do the skeleton and keep the time readable. But
there's yeah, well, I wouldn't say we've got the design nailed just yet, but I think I can see the direction of travel we want to go in.
Indeed, you must enjoy the process. I mean, one of the things I didn't ask, from the idea, the concept, to having an actual working watch, what was that length of time?
It was probably about 3 years, just over 3 years. But we really didn't work. We could have done it quicker, let's put it that way, but we didn't work on the engineering until we were very confident we were going to get the patent. So there's a process there, and we were going through the patent process, and there were lots of ups and downs in that process itself. But when we got to a point where we thought, no, we've got this, then we started to really spend money on the engineering and the prototyping. And that went pretty quickly at that stage. So yeah, it was 3 years from start to finish there, to having working prototypes.
Yeah, and if anyone does choose to go onto your website or open a conversation with you through Facebook, once they've picked the materials, what's delivery estimate delivery for a personalized Singularity watch?
So yep, so someone would make contact with us. There's usually at least two calls where either myself or Daniel will take the customer through all the possible permutations and combinations. So we'll do an initial introduction, and it's usually well, a lot of people seem to get quite overwhelmed by the number of choices. So we do the explanation. We'll let people sit with it for a while. Sometimes we have a conversation and a second or third conversation to help them get enough information where they feel they're making a knowledgeable decision. And then once that decision's been made, we'll have a final discussion with them to go through and confirm each component individually and make sure that we are going to assemble exactly the right watch for them. Yeah. So from the date of them confirming the exact watch that they want to the delivery, provided we have all the components and parts, so they're picking components from, should we say, our internal palette, that's 4 weeks. So yeah, so we spend a lot of time working on that process to make sure that we don't want people, we want the piece to be, first of all, we want the piece to be perfect. So we don't compromise in quality, but equally we don't want people to be waiting 6-9 months for it. Yeah. So getting that balance right, so we can ensure the integrity of the piece, but also ensure that it gets delivered in a reasonable period of time, has been one of our challenges over the last, 18 months, which we're very confident. We have an excellent watchmaker who assembles every single one of our watches now. So there's one person assembles every watch for us, and he does an incredible job for us, and we're so lucky to have found him. And he actually bought one of our first watches, so from us as well. So He's a proud owner of one of our Singularity watches.
Nice, nice. Oh, I'm definitely going to be having a look today, and probably sending you a message at some point. I'm quite confident of that.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. And I think I've got to the end of the questions that I've drafted up there. I
Right.
think I've covered everything that I need to, but is there anything that I may have missed out about yourself or the brand, or anything that you'd like to tell anyone who's stuck about this long to watch to the end?
Yeah. I think, well, one of the key points we probably should have addressed at the beginning is, the way we display time with the single hand. So the patent itself is, as we mentioned before, is about the display of time. And what we've done, and people, it's not immediately obvious because it's quite subtle, is we send the minutes backwards. So the minutes turn backwards, and that's another aspect of the module that we integrate into the movement, is that module slows the movement of the minutes and sends them backwards. And as we send the minutes backwards and the hour hand moves forwards, we have time converging at a single point. And that's what the patent deals with. And what we can do is, there's a great piece of video where we've done time lapse of we'd say 10 minutes and 10 seconds. So you can see the movement of the minutes and the and of the hour hand. So again, it's a completely unique way of displaying time. It's, single-handed watches have always been about guessing the minute. This is the first single-handed watch where the minute. You've got one hand, but you can still tell time accurately to the minute. And that's the whole idea of Singularity and that display of time.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for talking to us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And if there's anyone with any questions, I'm on your Facebook group, so please look me up and shoot me any questions you have. I'm delighted to answer any of them.
Ian, I'll make a point of tagging you in any posts that we make about Singularity, and then if anyone in the group would like to contact you, please do. You've got permission of Stephen there now to badge in with any questions you've got.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Soon.